Hello, and welcome to Ideas with Diana, episode 602, on February 28, 2023. Well, today's episode, what I'd like to talk about is it's time to end the war games. And the war games in the Ukraine and other big war games have been going on since February 24th. The thing is, the people involved in the war games, those who are not part of the elites, the actual citizens in Ukraine and other parts of the world who are suffering from this, they don't care who started it. They don't care who's right along. However, they don't want to live in the dark. They don't want to starve. They don't want to drink bad water. They want to live their lives and be able to look forward to a future. It is now time to set an armistice, not like World War One, the French way, which failed because basically some group in France wanted revenge against the German people and destroy the German people. An armistice like Korea that recognizes that there are two distinct cultures, and until they can figure out a way for both cultures to work together like they did in a few Olympics ago when both Koreas came as a unified team, an armistice in the Donbass, declaring the port of Odessa as an international neutral port, so goods as wheat, food, other things can flow naturally to people of the world who need it, and also an end of Russophobia. There are many people who are friends who are Russians. There are many people who are part Russian. My sixth grade teacher was a deacon at the Russian Orthodox Church in Kenosha, where I lived and taught at Jefferson School. And he was well respected. His wife was a nurse at St. Catherine's Hospital and well respected. Even during that time, we had our version of Russophobia because I remember when my dad ran for office in Kenosha, as my last name is Konecki. My dad ran for automatic office, and there's one mean person whose last name starts with a P, and basically said, "Well, we don't want any Russians or communists in here." My dad was very offended as many people in the neighborhood where I lived with that even weren't part Russian or Russian. Also, my dad was not a communist. We support the American way. We support freedom of enterprise. We support the right to own property. Also, living in Milwaukee was a social experiment that worked quite well for four mayors with the American Socialist mayors as the Home Brothers, Mayor Zeiler, and others. So when people watch Happy Days, they're actually watching the time when Milwaukee had an American Socialist mayor. During that time, the American Socialist policies helped pay for an operation for my dad's leg for polio, so he could walk, work, and live a normal life. Albeit he had polio, there's some mean people who tried to draft him into Korea four times, hoping that basically he would get killed on the battlefield because of his polio. It is time to end this stupid, bloody, disastrous war games that has started and gone on. It's now starting a second year. I put a playlist together to indicate my viewpoints and as to show what I think type of bad thinking and the type of good thinking that needs to be done. Like in the 1969 version of Doctor Who, when he has some of the Time Lords, he had a little cube box he put like this, and like this to collect thoughts from them and send it. And the master at that time said, "No, please don't call them. Please, we can solve this." And he said, "No, this is over our heads. So we need the Time Lords to help." And in Star Trek, it was the episode of Operation Earth with Gary Seven. Based upon what's going on now, there's a fusion of both Doctor Who and Star Trek philosophy, as well as even philosophies of the science fiction writer Stanislav Lem about the story where everyone was supposed to live as fish because the state elite said that it'd be better if people lived as fish or as reptiles rather than actually living as air breathers. So the time has come to fusions there. It's time to start an armistice, time to end this stupid thing. Too many people have died, too many people are suffering. And do we really want to escalate this thing into something bigger that we can't get ourselves out of? There is a way to end this. An armistice would give time for us to think this thing out, work out a permanent solution, but it's going to have to be like Korea, not the French way. No retribution, no malice, and no destruction of culture. No culture is good or bad in this. There's been mistakes. It's time to do an armistice. To give an example, what hasn't failed, during this conflict, Russia, United States, and China have continued to work on space science, technology. Technology is a common unifier. I'm glad that we still can work on space science during this because this has shown that we haven't gone completely off the deep end. And what I've done is I use this sometimes to consider my logic. Also, I do this to teach myself humility and to be humble. Well, someone will say, okay, that looks pretty simple. You have our microcontroller, you have an OLED display, you have a TFT display, you have two EEPROM banks, you have an Adafruit chip, you have a transistor, you have switches. How does that make you humble? Well, it makes me humble because I understand the theory. I have education as an EECS pre-med, retired medical researcher. But even though I have the education, there's still times I make mistakes. And there's still sometimes I need to test the circuit to make sure that I wired it right. This is how I teach myself humility and keep myself humble as well as programming. In addition, I just don't rely on one project. I do other projects as well. Now you'll notice something very similar when I do these projects. These projects are done on an 8.5 by 11 board. So in Chicago we have pan pizza. So this is my pan pizza circuit project board. And I do it on this because basically another thing about humility and being humble is also being able to set boundaries and limits. And setting boundaries and limits is important so that basically one does not think that they know everything, and also one doesn't practice infinite procrastination by committee. And to the four code heads of the leadership in the EU, you know who they are. I mentioned you in other episodes. Please stop being code heads and get back to being human beings again. Stop the Russophobia, call for armistice, and also an armistice like Korea. Finally, when I do order parts, I order parts from various vendors. This set of parts was ordered from AliExpress. This set from Amazon. This set from Amazon. These parts from Amazon. My point is, science is not supposed to discriminate. I don't discriminate. If we can order science parts and we can order hobby parts, we can definitely put it into the stupid war games and call an armistice. Normally, I don't speak this forcefully in this manner, but this has gone on too long. Too many people died, and when there's leaf bombs being used, whose intention is to maim, that's against the UN Convention. And also, when the newscast, when I see too much of a one-sided report, I feel like the same thing like Walter Cronkite did in 1968 when he went on national news. He said, "Mr. President, end this stupid war, end this stupid war, end this stupid war. Set an armistice, set an armistice. No more procrastination, no more committee thinking. Too many people are dying, too many people have died, and this thing has a danger of getting way out of control." Well, let me know what you think. I can be reached on Twitter at Diana1A. Thank you for watching, and I promise next episode I'll try to hold back my Irish temper.